I have been invited to an exclusive first look of Planet Coaster 2. Not the trailer, no, actual gameplay. And I saw things like scaling, a brand new pathing, kind of wonderful editable flat rides and custom coaster train editor, the new scaling options for scenery pieces, the scenery pieces themselves, and so much more. In this video, I'm going to go through everything you haven't seen, because if you want to see what I have seen and all the screenshots, the trailer analysis and everything I could tell you about this one, it's in the other video I have just released a couple seconds ago, so make sure to check that one out. But in this video, I'm going to talk about the demo that we've been attending to. So a couple of creators have been invited to a very exclusive first look, and it was like a 25-ish minute demo on console, so beware, on console. So that's pretty good, because then we've seen already how it runs on console, but you definitely have seen from the screenshot that the PC version will look eventually a lot better, but that's just obvious. Now, let's start with the elephant in the room. Scaling is in Planet Coaster 2. Yes, I'm sitting here and I can't believe it myself, but it's in. You know, the UI isn't finished maybe, but there was an option, and I want to toggle through the advanced building tool, and I'm going to try to visualize that on your screen in Planet Coaster 1. If Frontier allows that to do, I'm going to check this before. So it was kind of a little circle, and once you pulled on that circle, the piece was scaling up and down. And if I remember correctly from the footage, there was at least a little bit of a slider from 0.2 to 2 or something like that. So 2x and 0.1x or whatever, something like that. But at least scaling is in, and group scaling and so on. So that is absolutely fantastic. That was the easy one. Also relatively easy, and therefore I'm going to use a screenshot of Planet Coaster 2. The pathing has been completely redone, and they've been talking about this quite often in the demo. Unfortunately, they did not show this in action. They just said that they have reworked the pathing completely. And I guess that, you know, let alone the fact that they did, is more than just a tiny bit. Let me quickly explain why. The thing about pathing in Planet Coaster and Planet Zoo has been, you were able to do a lot of things with the pathing. However, you had to do a lot of things manually. You had to cover up a lot of stuff. You had to use scenery pieces to make huge plazas, and it was a hassle, you know. You could do very great things with it, but you couldn't do them easily and intuitively. And I remember speaking to the devs and why they didn't change that for Planet Zoo 2. There was a very obvious reason to that, and this is because they asked themselves, how much of an influence does it have to the game, and how much work is it to actually change it? And they said it's quite a lot of work to change it, and it's not that huge of an impact. And the existing system works, so why change something with the danger of breaking something if it works? So that made sense at this point in time, because it also was released relatively soon after Planet Coaster, obviously. And now we are standing here some 6 years later, and they have done it. And for me, this is so much more than just the fact they've done it. It's so important because this shows how much effort they put into. If this game was going to be an easy cash grab, and honestly, people have a very reasonable or a very justified reason to believe this. After all the games like City Skylines 2 and whatever AAA titles in the past year or two have been released in a very questionable state, people have a reason to believe this. And this is why I'm so excited about this news that there is a new pathing in here, because this takes away my biggest fear that this is an easy kind of successor to a game because they want to make money. This actually gives me hope that this is the Planet Coaster 2 they were always going to do years and years already in the past. And again, looking at the screenshots and looking at how it worked in game, this gives me a lot of hope. And I'm hoping that you guys are sitting at the edge of your chair now, because let's talk about the absurdly biggest change. I will put in a little footage of the trailer right now, because this is exactly how the piece-by-piece flat ride editor in action will look like. You can basically plop any scenery piece on top of the ride, and once you confirm that it is on the ride, you basically bake it. You hard bake it to the ride, and it will be animated with the ride. You have some connection points of the ride where you can tuck them down, and then they will be edited to this point. They will be rotating around the very axis you've then plopped them on. But it's not limited to the space only. You can basically put these scenery items everywhere you want. And now it's getting even better. It's getting even better. You can take blueprints and drop them onto the flat ride, and it's automatically going to scale down to fit in this spot, and it's going to be one asset. So the submarine you're seeing in the footage is actually a piece-by-piece built blueprint that you took, plopped on top of it, hard baked it onto it, and it started rotating. When I saw that, I was sitting here and I had tears in my eyes. I was like, I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I have never expected Frontier to go that far. I've thought, okay, we will maybe get some more options, a bit like how the small exhibits work in Planet Zoo. You know, that you have some customizable options, but not that many. I would have already been happy with that. But seeing this is just off the charts. And now, if that wasn't enough, we move over now to the coaster. We need to move over to the coaster because the coaster brings in something absolutely crazy. And I'm talking about the coaster as a POV in a second. But there is, again, something so cool about this. The coaster has the same system as the flat rides. You can customize your coaster train. And you'll see some footage in the background now of me doing this in Planet Coaster, actually. This is exactly how it works. You use your pieces and you plop them next to your coaster, but it doesn't end here. When they did this, I was already sold, but now they added that there are so many more options. We have a mirroring tool and we have a duplicate instance tool. Now, what exactly does this mean? Well, it does mean exactly those steps that we usually do, the game does for us now. So, let me put it that way. You have a piece and you build this, you can enable the side-by-side building, which is basically mirroring, and you can have from the origin of the coaster, because that only works on the coaster. I'm not sure if there's an option to do this in normal building, but with the coaster that was working. So you click this on and automatically the same piece appears on the other side of the coaster train as well. And if you then added the instance, you can basically insert how many repetitions you want to have, and then it also does the same towards the back of the coaster. So the other trains are also edited simultaneously. So you don't have to copy-paste around pieces. You just legitimately build this one thing as in a 3D tool, and you say like, okay, copy, mirror, done. Ridiculous. So you can actually focus on one side of the coaster, and once you're happy with this one, everything else is done. And now, even better, you can spare out one instance. So let's say you want to do the front of the coaster, obviously, as the first train looks different, and then the second train needs to look like all the other ones. You can basically do this. And when I saw that, I was like, okay, my God, just take my money and give me that freaking game now. But it got even better. Thankfully, they jumped into a POV. I was so much hoping for that one. And I'm quite sure that we haven't seen this coaster in any of the screenshots, because the coaster they were riding was definitely not the B&M one that we saw in-game with the stand-up one. It was definitely a different one. It was the very classic coaster train. Actually, I believe it is the same coaster train, and if I remember correctly, I'm gonna use this one for the footage you'll see in the background. It was the exact coaster train that is also the first coaster we ever had in Planet Coaster, so that was a very nice nudge to the original game. But the POV, my God, it looked so smooth. No matter how good you've been with the 4-meter method, with the 1-meter method lately, with mods, with editing, you wouldn't be able to do such a smooth ride. Honestly, they have redone everything about this. And the build itself, like the coaster itself, didn't even look so good, to be honest. There was a bit of shaping issues here and there. They were using the prefab pieces. So it looked okay, but it wasn't perfect. There were 2 or 3 corners that were a tiny bit too sharp, maybe a bit overbanked. And it still looked decent. It still looked very, very good. Snappy where it needed to be and super smooth where it needs to be as well. So that was ridiculous to see. Honestly, I've never actually hoped for this being that good, because they also said, and unfortunately again this is another thing we haven't seen in action, they have said they actually redid the coaster editor as well, made it a lot more intuitive, a lot more simple. So either it's a new camera variant and making the coaster feel a lot more smooth by the camera, which to be honest I'll take, or they also changed the way how the coaster is smoothed itself, because they spoke about new updated smoothing options for the coaster. So very interested to know about that one, because I remember speaking to the devs many years ago, while there was still development going on for Planet Coaster 1, but it was already going towards the end of the cycle. They said they have some ideas about how to get Coaster smooth, but they weren't sure if it's going to make their way in this game. So potentially these are the ideas they had back then now put into effectively the successor, which, you know, I wouldn't complain about. This is great. But there's more about coasters, guys. There's more about that. I haven't even mentioned everything in the beginning. I could have made a whole list of things I've seen, I've spotted. And this is a little spot even Sylph hasn't seen at the beginning, and then we were talking about, he was like, oh my god, yeah, I could have been, I don't remember correctly, because unfortunately we don't have the footage, but I am 100% sure that I saw 3 lanes entering the coaster. So that means one of them has to be either a fast pass or a single rider lane. But I'm entirely sure that it has to be in the single rider lane, because I'm not entirely sure if the path was that much narrower, but it was definitely narrower. And the other one was a much wider path. And the thing about this was that while they were editing the train, I was able to look at all these entrances, and there were definitely 2 entrances and 1 exit. I'm 100% sure about that. And if you remember correctly how the fast pass actually worked in the first game, they were connected to the main queue. So it totally makes sense that the fast pass still acts like a fast pass, but the single rider lane acts like a single rider lane and has a separate entrance, obviously, while the fast pass doesn't need to be, but the fast pass needs to be connected to either the single rider lane and the normal queue, or to both, effectively. So that is something very exciting as well, which brings me to the last point of this kind of exclusive gameplay thing, and this is like my overall experience and my overall reaction to it. Because obviously there are some things you can't put in words, you can't put at the table, because they are not haptic, or they're not like a specific item or feature or not. It's the overall feeling, you know, the overall feeling of what we've seen. And I must say that this is a console version we've been looking at. And it's not only that they played with a controller, you actually saw that from some of the textures that were not as high quality as on the screenshots. This may actually be because of it being a demo and they toned it down intentionally. They haven't said anything about this, but I almost think so, just to ensure that performance and so on is good for the demo. And, you know, because of recording and live streaming and blah, 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 that just kind of makes sense, and I'm fine with that, just mentioning that. But still, it felt so much more alive. And they also had, like, the last couple minutes, they were looking at it from Bird's perspective, like you could oversee the whole park. And it felt so much more alive. Like, there were so many more people roaming around. The crowds felt a lot more realistic because of all these wider and more realistic paths. They play a huge role in making that feel also new. The pools actually felt super, super cool. I almost want to say they were a bit overcrowded in the demo. I'm not sure what they were doing, if they were overpopular or whatnot. But that felt a tiny bit overpopulated already. But other than that, great stuff, and it just looked so freaking awesome. And I don't know how many pieces in the menu. I've spotted a number above 2,000 pieces in some of the editing menus, but I can't tell you if that's the overall number of that, or if that already was a lower number because they filtered something. I don't know, but at least 2,000 pieces or more kind of confirmed. That's something I've seen. And then just like for the overall lighting, I liked it a lot. The game itself felt a little bit too poppy and too colorful for me personally, but that just may be because I'm so used to Planet Zoo now, which has a bit more of a toned down realistic lighting, and Planet Coaster always was more colorful. I wish we have some options to tone that down for our personal liking. That would be amazing. And speaking of different colors, we haven't seen any weather. Not at all. But there is a weather toggle in the UI we have seen. So there is a UI toggle. I'm not able to show you because I don't have any footage or any screenshot of the UI, unfortunately. The UI, in fact, didn't even seem to be changed that much from the console UI of Planet Zoo, I want to say. It definitely looked a lot more like the one from Planet Zoo rather than the one from Planet Coaster back then. So they implemented all the improvements they have already done for Planet Zoo. So that's pretty damn cool to see. But just in general, I really hope that the fact that console is in means that the game will be super polished at the beginning of its lifespan already, which leaves me with one very happy eye and one kind of worried eye. I don't want to say crying eye, but the one thing that also was a little bit in there in the vibe is that the game could potentially, very, very unlikely, but potentially have been a limitation due to the fact it's on console. Whenever you've seen games being released simultaneously on various systems, they are always limited to its weakest counterpart, and that always is the console. I know console players don't want to hear that, but it is just facts, because the moment your console is on the market, it's not the best system anymore, and specifically when it's older for a couple of years, which is the fact with the current generation of consoles, it lags behind, and the game has to be optimized for its weakest counterpart. If it is not happening like in the past when they brought Planet Zoo for console years later, they can obviously optimize in a different way. So, you know, here's to hope that they found a very nice way to manage this, and obviously I want to be able to have the best out of it with my computer and with the power my computer has. But it's very good to see that they are able to bring this to a console, because that also means that some PC players that do not have the bestest of systems will be able to play the game in a very nice fashion. So this gives me hope. This is why I'm so split on the opinion, but at the end of the day, the fact it's also on console can only be great, because so many more people have the chance to play this game from the very beginning, which I feel like is the best info about this. And also, beyond looking at this, I am very, very curious to see more about the management, because one thing I also want to mention is that I had the feeling the whole demo it wasn't staged, but they were very carefully hiding certain things. They were very carefully going through the menu. They were super careful to not jump into certain menus to make us see certain things. In the coaster menu, they skipped over the editings and stuff like that. You couldn't see if there's switch tracks or anything like that available. You couldn't see if there's I don't know, daytime management. You couldn't see the management at all. You couldn't see anything about if there are other facilities. They didn't even open the facility tab. You couldn't see what in the amenities is, what in the different other facility tabs was. You couldn't see weather. As I said, they just completely skipped over time and weather option, never even opened or touched it. So very carefully, and as I said, they spared out an entire part of the park, and that is the part where all the people came from, which is a relatively big chunk of the park you've seen in the screenshots. So that was very interesting that they did spare that out, and I'm very curious to learn why they did, because at the end of the day, this is something we want to know as well. We want to know what we can do with our coasters. We want to know how the management has changed, because granted, that was one of these little things that, you know, were needed to make the game even more accessible to the management lovers out there as well. I'm a builder. I couldn't care less about management in general, but I do, because I want this to be a great game for everyone, and I want this to be a great game for the people who love to manage even the amount of salt that goes onto your chips, for example. I want it to be a great management game for those who want to struggle, who want to have a hard mode, you know. They really have to struggle building the perfect park, and not at the moment they have enough money at hand, everything is done and dusted. So I really hope this game is becoming the one game we all wanted and needed. And shall I say something to you now? I think we have a pretty bonkers foundation. This, my friends, I have seen, the 25-ish minutes of gameplay I've seen make me very hopeful. There are a lot of things they have to prove. The performance is something, the graphics are something, the coasters in general are something, the amount of content has to be proven, and obviously weather and stuff has to be confirmed, even though I'm very positive it's in. Now, yeah, well, that leaves me to the conclusion. The arena is set, the stage is set, the foundation is done. As I said, you know, the planter has been prepared for the big plant to be plotted in. I really have a hard time staying relaxed with these videos, because I'm so hyped. I have been invited for this event for over a month. It was the hardest month of my life to A, wait for that, and B, just be calm and just don't talk about that at all, and not even make it shine through. So I'm so happy we can finally openly talk about this, and I'm very, very thankful to be in that position, which I am because of you. So thank you guys so much for your ongoing support. Thank you for putting me into the position that I can bring you all this exclusive stuff. I hope that I could have bring you in with the exclusive a little bit better than potentially you were. I have no footage, but I hope I made it better for you now. And I want to thank you just one more time. You guys are the reason why I was invited in the first place, and I'm able to put it there because I'm the creator I am right now. And if you want to follow along and get more exclusive insights and stuff, make sure to subscribe to the channel now. Don't wait for longer. Make sure to subscribe now. Set your bell, you'll be notified, and there's a ton of content coming about Planet Coaster 2 in the coming weeks. I guarantee you won't be missing out on this one. I'm going to cover every single bit that's coming out, every single bit we may have at hand or not, every single bit you'll be waiting for, I'm waiting for, so thank you again. Make sure to subscribe to the channel, and I'll talk to you in the next one. By the way, if you want to see the analysis of the screenshots and stuff, it's just in the other video that has been released simultaneously with this one. So thank you so much for watching. I talk to you in the next one, and goodbye.